for other faiths. And this is actually very clear. This is one of the things that around which there's a lot of conversation. And I know that this is what CORD stands for. With regard to the very important matter of abortion, I personally hold the view, which again is clearly elaborated in the Constitution, after some very serious conversation, that life begins at conception. Not only that, that every human being has the right to life, and that life begins at conception. Therefore, I would clearly indicate my individual position that I'm opposed to abortion, because abortion is killing a child.
Mm-hmm. We'd also like to find out more about family planning and, of course, the proposed marriage bill, and you were sitting in cabinet.
I beg your pardon?
The proposed marriage bill.
The proposed marriage bill. It came to cabinet, I tell you, elicited a lot of debate, and there wasn't unanimity, so we eventually, I'm sure the 11th Parliament will have to deal with that. But while on the subject of abortion again, so that Olive will get me very clear, there are circumstances that the Constitution elaborates, and I think this is also reasonable. If, for instance, the life of the mother is at stake and are trained, the Constitution is very clear. Not anybody operating in a dark street corner should be able to go and say they are trying to assist a mother in difficulty. It must be somebody trained that then, in order to save the life of this mother, then it becomes necessary to carry out an abortion. Otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, life strictly begins at conception. Don't worry about the marriage bill. I think the reality in Kenya now is that because of gender sensitivity, the need for gender balance, you see, because we still have people in this country who are living in the past, and they think that if a marriage breaks, then the man must take everything. Now, it is very clear in the Constitution that everybody will have to get their share, and that is at 50%. So I'm sure the Marriage Act will still come to fruition, taking into account some of these realities.
Mm-hmm. Just very quickly, during the referendum, of course, you were at some point even accused of being a watermelon because you were saying, let's pass the Constitution, and there are contentious issues that were raised in regards to abortion. In terms of implementation of this aspect, we want to find out your individual stand on this.
And on a light note, I really don't mind the fruit, but but I really was never that. Just for the record, people saying he is red at night or something like that, and green. I have always been for the Constitution. The only thing, in fact, I'm happy to see Bishop Oginde, because it was at his inauguration that I said that we needed to listen to the church. If you want to be a leader, you also need to be able to listen to everybody's view. That does not necessarily make what I've actually said. I've always been a champion of this Constitution. I was once fired as Minister for Environment because of opposing what I thought was a bad Constitution. So these things are very clear in my mind, but that is water under the bridge. I think the country now does greatly appreciate, particularly the combination between the Prime Minister and myself, leaders of CORD, the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy, and we really are out for this real change, which the country has been long waiting for.
All right, Honorable Chodo.
When you talk of abortion, I think we are between a very deep sea and a very hard rock, because it's not an easy matter, because matter of life and death. It's either life and death for the baby or for the mother. Obviously, Safina believes in the sanctity and sacrilege of the Constitution and the right to life. And I also said earlier on, we did nonetheless recognize that there was about 10% of what we had in the new Constitution that may not have been so good. So we would recognize that. I'm not saying that the abortion law is bad, no. But it's one of the issues that may need to a more critical look at, bringing in the professionals. Part of why I say it's a difficult one is because you can't solve one without affecting the other. We do recognize that life begins at conception. But again, we do appreciate that everybody has got their strengths and their talents. And the church...
So what is your personal stand on the issue?
Sorry?
What is your personal stand on the issue?
My personal stand is that abortion should be outlawed as it is in the Constitution, except in extremely difficult conditions that are proved by professionals.
All right.
I don't know if you wanted me to take up on the Marriage Act as well, but yes, that's our stand on abortion.
All right. Mr. Onono, I would like to find out your thoughts on the same. Your individual stand on abortion, same-sex relationships, family planning, and the proposed marriage bill.
Thank you very much. I'll start with same-sex. I don't support it fully. We cannot have same-sex because sex was made for procreation, not for pleasure. So you cannot tell me that you have homosexuals and lesbians doing that, and I oppose it fully. Let me take you back to the Bible, because everything rises and falls in leadership, and leadership came from God. If you read the scriptures, it is written, and I'll quote, God abhors homosexuality. Abhors means you hate something completely. And in fact, that is what made God destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. From the word Sodom, we say to sodomize, from English. God was very angry. And there are two things that makes God very angry. Homosexuality, he hates it so much. And I think you saw it from Sodom and Gomorrah. That is about the same sex. On the issue of abortion, let us not play second fiddle. Let us not be watermelons that today you are yes, tomorrow you are no. No. Abortion, I'll say no. Because when you go back to the Bible again, it says do not kill. Full stop. There's nothing like do not kill, but also, nonetheless, it is do not kill. The 10 Commandments are very clear. And on that, it says do not kill. That is my stand. On the issue of marriage, the marriage bill, I'm telling you that Kenyans, not even Kenyans, the world, it has come to an end. I want to tell you this. The world has come to an end, and if you look at the marriage bill, I have a lot to say, and at the same time, I have nothing to say, because everything lies in nothing. And I want to tell you that that is what I can say about marriage bill. Thank you.
All right. Ronnie Usumba, what is your take on the issue?
First, I would like to acknowledge Odongo's sense of humor. Clearly, their ticket is one that is going to bring in a lot of humor to the country. But on a more serious matter, on a more serious note, I think the issues that Olive raises are very serious social issues that require very serious conversations. We cannot successfully address them fully because these are issues that are influenced largely by religion, by culture, by practice, and by exposure to Western cultures as well. And I think if you talk about abortion, I support upholding the ban on abortion, but there are very difficult circumstances, as Daktari mentioned, that could lead to abortion being necessary. My concern is who makes the call on when abortion becomes necessary. I believe strongly that life does indeed start at conception, and we must uphold it as such. But we still need then to address the very tough conversations around who makes the call when abortion becomes necessary, particularly to protect or to save the life of a mother.
What about on the issue of same-sex relationships?
On the issue of same-sex relationships, again, I think relationships and marriages, we need to be very clear that biblically sex is made for procreation. And I think that is precisely how we need to hold that gift from God and needs to be preserved as such. But we cannot run away from the fact that same-sex relationships have become rampant in our country. It is an issue that needs to be addressed. It is an issue that continues to permeate our society today, and we need to take a position as a nation and address that particular issue because they are humans. And I remember I hosted a show when I was on NTV, Hatua, and we had a very tough conversation with people who have actually practiced this kind of relationships. And I remember one thing that Dr. Oginde mentioned in that particular show, and he said, they are children of God. And we need to listen. We need to help where we can help. And therefore, we cannot carry it aside and say that it is not an issue that we as Christians cannot address. On the issue of the Marriage Act, I think, again, in regards to, and I want to address it from a legislation perspective, I think our legislation process needs to be a bit more serious. The Marriage Act, I think, was passed in a hurry. It was influenced by a lot of...
It is still a bill just for purposes of clarity.
Sorry?
It is still a bill just for purposes of
yes,
clarity.
it has been influenced by a lot of influences and positions, the male legislators taking very tough positions. But we need to have a clarity of thought when talking about marriage, because again, marriage is influenced by a lot of factors, cultural, religious, and others. And again, our legislative process needs to be more serious so that we are passing bills that do not have to be revisited by every parliament that is elected.
All right. Honorable Ruto, we can almost remember your stand during the referendum on this issue. So I would like you to just give us briefly your stand on this issue, and in particular focus on the proposed marriage bill.
Thank you, Madam, because you have actually spoken for me. I think my position on the issues of abortion, and for the record, that is also the position of the Jubilee Coalition, is that abortion is unconstitutional and it should remain as such. There shouldn't be any gray area when it comes to allowing the killing of anybody, whether it's the mother or the child. And that any provisions on those issues should be taken to legislation if it must. The Jubilee Coalition, in our manifesto, we are very clear on issues of same-sex marriages, which are is a serious moral issue, which is also coupled with prostitution. And we are amongst the lone voices when the mayor of Nairobi suggested that they were going to license prostitutes. And we stood our ground and said, this is a God-fearing nation. For heaven's sake, we cannot have such. So our position on issues of prostitution, issues of same-sex marriages, the position of Jubilee is that we believe in family values. We believe that this is a God-fearing nation. And there is nowhere, whether in Islam or Christianity, that we can talk about homosexuals. In fact,
just
the Bible
go straight
equates,
to the because your time is almost
yes,
up.
the
Talk
Bible
a little bit about the
equates-
marriage bill.
if you read the Bible clearly, it equates homosexuals with a very derogated animal called dogs. They are in the same school, according to the Bible. But let me say this. When it comes to the last issue you have mentioned about the marriage bill was first introduced in cabinet when I was still a minister. And it didn't even last 15 minutes. It was rejected because of the provisions that were therein. Subsequently, it passed through cabinet, but hasn't come to the floor of the House. I am confident that the conscience of this nation will make it possible for members of parliament to pass a marriage bill that meets the standard that will keep us as a nation and keep our morals together.